Hello Bio242. This is our second video on the anatomy of the respiratory system. Here, we'll cover the details of the external and internal anatomy of the lungs. Remember, deep inside the lungs is where external respiration takes place, the exchange of gas between air and blood. Each lung is surrounded by a serous membrane called a pleura. Pleura is the singular form, and pleurae is the plural form. Serous membranes are two-layered membranes. The visceral layer wraps tightly around each lung. The parietal layer adheres to the diaphragm and the wall of the thoracic cavity. Between these two layers lies the pleural cavity. This pleural cavity contains lubricating serous fluid. The presence of this fluid allows the lungs to expand and contract in a virtually frictionless environment. This slide shows some features of the gross anatomy of the lungs. There is a slight asymmetry between the right and left lungs. This occurs because the left lung must accommodate the presence of the heart, which extends into the left side of the chest. So the left lung has a notch out of it, referred to as the cardiac notch. Each lung is separated into lobes. The left lung has two lobes, superior and inferior. The right lung has three lobes, superior, middle, and inferior. Each lobe is subdivided into bronchopulmonary segments, divided by connective tissue. Each segment is served by its own artery and vein, and each segment gets air from its own tertiary bronchus. Since the bronchopulmonary segments are basically independent of each other, it's relatively straightforward to surgically remove diseased portions of the lung. This is a cross-section of the human body, taken at a level that shows the anatomical relationship between the lungs and heart. You are looking up at this cross-section as though from the feet of the body. Here's the left lung, and the right lung, with the heart in the middle. Notice the esophagus and the aorta running posteriorly along the spine. You can also see the pleural cavities in this image. Now let's move to the internal anatomy of the lungs. Within the lungs, you find the respiratory zone, where gas exchange actually occurs. Remember from our conducting zone discussion that the bronchi branch out into the bronchioles. The bronchioles terminate in alveolar sacs. You can think of alveolar sacs as grape clusters with hollow, thin-walled grapes, the alveoli. Alveoli is plural. The singular form is alveolus. Each alveolus is closely associated with a network of capillaries so that the respiratory gases can pass between the blood in the capillaries and the air in the alveoli. These images give you an idea of what the alveoli look like under the microscope. Let's look at the cartoon version first. This is a cutaway of an alveolar sac. You can see how thin-walled the alveoli are. Each alveolus is connected to other alveoli by holes called alveolar pores. These openings allow the entire alveolar sac to be inflated at once as air passes into the alveolar duct. The histology of the lung shows just how thin-walled these alveoli truly are. Here are a few alveoli. There. This bigger, empty structure is a bronchiole. The epithelium in the alveoli is simple squamous, a single layer of flattened epithelial cells. In the bronchioles, the epithelium becomes simple cuboidal. I mentioned before that each alveolus is wrapped in capillaries. You can see that in the image down here at the right. In order to get into the blood, oxygen must cross from the air inside the alveolus, across the alveolar wall, across the capillary wall, and into the blood. Carbon dioxide must make the reverse journey. The alveolar wall, the capillary wall, and a thin, fused basement membrane between the two make up the respiratory membrane. This is the barrier that oxygen and carbon dioxide must cross in order for gas exchange to occur. This membrane is normally very thin, only 1/2 to 1 micron thick in healthy lungs. In pathological conditions such as pneumonia, the respiratory membrane gets thickened, making gas exchange much less efficient. The respiratory membrane also has an enormous surface area, about 140 meters squared in a healthy set of lungs. That's about half the area of a tennis court. This enormous surface area is also critical for efficient gas exchange. There are some pathological conditions, like emphysema, that break down the walls between alveoli, drastically reducing the surface area for exchange. There are 3 types of cells you find in the alveolus. Type 1 pneumocytes are the basic building blocks of the alveolar wall. They're very thin, flattened squamous cells, the better for gas exchange. Type 1 cells are the beige cells shown in the illustration at left. Type 2 pneumocytes are also called septal cells. They are scattered among the type 1 pneumocytes. These are the cells that produce surfactant. Surfactant is a soap-like substance that reduces the surface tension of the fluid in the lungs, making it easier to inflate the lungs. Type 2 cells are the green cells in this illustration at left. Alveolar macrophages, or dust cells, help keep the alveoli clean. Remember, macrophages are highly phagocytic cells. They phagocytose and eliminate particles in the lungs, including cell debris, bacteria and viruses, and particles from air pollution. The macrophages are the blue cells in this illustration, rolling along the surface of the alveolus. This brings us to the end of our discussion of the respiratory anatomy. At this point, you should be able to answer the questions shown here. Pause the video and give it a try now.